It's the old chestnut. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This time on Whispers of a Dark Future in the year of Kamala Harris.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
All right, so we've been out for a while, and while we were out, the entire country collapsed. We missed a lot of things, but let's focus on just a few important things. Which this will be the big beautiful bill, and then the other one will be on Israel and Iran. There's other important things, but it's too much. Okay, if the world exploded. All right,
Yeah.
Piper Tompkins, could you summarize for us what is the big beautiful bill?
Yeah, it's basically his first term, he did a bunch of tax cuts for the wealthy, and those ran out. So now under his second term, the point of the big beautiful bill is to reinstate them, plus packaging in some other stuff. So notably, there's some relief for like middle class people, but it's basically nothing. And there's also cuts to Medicaid. So
Because that's what we need right now. There's a crumbling support network, and what you need to do is go in and punch it right in the face as it's dying.
yeah, and like the upshot, which is like the reason it was controversial in the branch, when it was moving through the branches of government, is because there are still a bunch of people in the Republican Party who are kind of quote unquote fiscally conservative that want to reduce the national debt. And this is basically going to add, I think it's something like 4 trillion to the debt ultimately.
Well, fiscal conservatism is technocracies, okay? It's not a. It's
That's
not
why
really.
that's why
You
that's
know.
why I said it in a stupid
Well,
voice. But
we have to tell the audience; they're not going to know that it's
yeah.
It's not. It's McDonald's, okay? When you go to McDonald's, you go, I want a fiscal conservatism, I want some social liberalism, and I want a little
Yeah.
bit of curly fries with it. Oh, you don't have curly fries? Darn. Okay.
Can I get a number 9 fiscal conservatism?
Yes, and the last thing you want is feet in your fiscal conservatism.
But yeah, so am I remembering that right? 4 trillion?
Oh wait, I think it's 3 trillion, I think. Being
Okay.
thinks it's from what being remember. So initially being thought, oh, it's a trillion of cuts to programs, a trillion cuts taxes, whatever. Turns out it's worse. Apparently it's still a trillion spending cuts, and then it's quote unquote 3 trillion of rich tax cuts, which it's like, oh, how does this bill get worse? Oh, just read about it and it gets worse. Like all great things, they get worse the more you know about them.
So, but the upshot is because it's, huge tax cuts for the rich and the expansion of national debt at the same time. But yeah, so it's it's going to constitute a big expansion to the national debt. It's going to constitute a big tax cut for the rich. It's going to lead, like the first tax cuts did, to further upward redistribution of wealth, which is sort of just exacerbating global trends of inequality and economic polarization. And the thing that I sort of find interesting is that this bill, is ultimately like an attack on the working people of America. And the point of Trump is that he's a populist. He's for the working people of America. He wants to bring back jobs. He was able to convince a huge amount of the white working class that he was the answer to their problems. And his sort of defining bill so far of his very active second term at that is an attack on U.S. working and poor people. So it's just like a very interesting irony. And it makes you sort of wonder how it is that people can still be part of like the MAGA cult after this. What is the excuse? Like, it's just a kind of complete reversal of the supposed virtue of the Trump movement, right? That it was,
Wow.
so,
Apparently, according to like the liberal news out in MSNBC and all that, they're like, the Manosphere podcasters regret voting for Trump because it's a slow news day, I guess. The podcast people, Joe Rogan, the Manosphere. Manosphere used to mean masculinist politics, right? Joe Rogan, fine. The other podcast they named, I can't remember right now, was had Bernie on and was like pro Bernie, and it was like, I don't know, like there's a subsection of people who like Trump but also like Bernie, which is like amazing. Like a big the concept of big tent populism is like like because the point of populism, radical populism, is to undo big tentism and cartelism and try to have like a inject into politics this mobilization, this clear mobilization. And so some people are like, what if we just did like ethnocracy and then the other guy could do the social justice equality stuff too at the same time? It's like, okay, awesome. That's amazing. Thank you. It's funny because I think a lot of people just want like some European right populism, because in some right populism in some European countries, it's like, yes, expanding welfare, but only for the ethnos. I think a lot of people just want that. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't like people of color, but I want to keep my benefits. Okay, so apparently they're not tax cuts, according to the one guy. I don't remember his name. This is a great podcast. I don't remember anybody's name. John Wolf or something. I don't know. Richard Wolf. Not Richard Wolf. Whatever. Said that the 3 trillion is not a tax cut. It's the moving tax obligations down the line. Do you want to try to explain that, or?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like once again, one of the big functions of this bill is to reestablish the tax cuts from the first administration that lapsed. And so the point is that eventually you're going to have to pay for the tax cuts because because he's still like expanding the national debt, right? So, like, instead of it actually being a tax cut, it's just going to happen that people later down the road will have to pay for it once the administration changes and so forth, right? So, because there's this like cyclical aspect to tax legislation, and because they're not cutting down the national debt, basically people are going to have to pay these taxes eventually. And so
Yes.
it's essentially just pushing the taxes off.
I forgot.
Later period in time. Yeah.
The no tax on tips, a lot of this stuff gets sunsetted in 2028.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Also, yeah.
that's amazing. So basically, like when 2028 rolls around, the Republicans will be like, "Oh, you want to keep this? You got to vote in our next guy." Well, it'll probably just Trump again. He'll just like do a third term anyways, despite like the fact that he can't. He'll just do it anyways because it's Trump. I like that. Like all these new, like the Supreme Court is like, look, all of you lower courts, you can't stop him for violating the Constitution. That's unconstitutional. It's like, oh, brilliant. And so it's like, okay, whatever, sure, why not?
The Supreme Court is full of Muppets at this point. But like, yeah, I mean, so were you gonna say something?
No.
Yeah, so it's not even really tax cuts. It's basically just like redistribute. It's like basically just like, you know, you could say momentary, but not really. I mean, because it's not like once somebody actually has to pay those taxes, it's going to be the rich that's paying them. But it's basically just redistribution of wealth upward. It's not even really a tax cut. So yeah, and it's once again sort of like baffling that anybody can sort of maintain that this is like this is the kind of thing that needs to be supported by populists, whether they're right-wing populists or left-wing populists.
That's the thing about populists, right? Like because they've already kind of conceded to like proceduralism and some other things. Radical populists have to like toe this line of like, we want an ethnocracy, but we also have to like work within the Constitution to break it down. And sometimes it's successful. You're particularly successful, or at least clear-headed about what you're doing, if like you don't constantly chicken out of everything in the last minute, and you're like not constantly like flip-flopping on everything. It's also good if you personally have like a coherent belief in the ideology, whereas Trump is always sort of, I don't know what he believes personally. Like, I know what the MAGA movement believes. I know what he stands for to them and what he pushes in what direction. But him as a person seems to just believe in Trump.
Yeah, I don't think he has any actual. I think the only thing he believes is like me. Like, I have power, me. I have power and money, me. Like
Mhm.
that's his belief system. If you ask one.
Well, Elon is gonna new party, the American Party. So the Know Nothings are back. That's awesome because the Know Nothing Party, the OG nativist party, was actually called the American Party. Everyone calls it the Know Nothings because when you ask them what's this party about, they go, I don't nothing, and so they call them Know Nothings. And so Elon Musk is revitalizing the American Party. I don't know if it's going to be another nativist party. Elon's sort of it's described as fiscally conservative. It's a broad fiscally conservative third
Yeah, of
party.
course. The thing that the thing that pushed him away from Trump ultimately was like, the fact that Trump wasn't fiscally conservative. Now, so okay, so everybody that doesn't like Elon Musk, right? President company included, should take this as a gigantic victory because what what he's doing by announcing, "Oh, I'm going to have a third party," is he's basically saying, "Okay, I'm irrelevant in American politics now," right? Because everybody knows that both the Republican and Democratic Party maintain an active monopoly over politics in the United States. And so the only relevance third parties have is as like a ballot spoiler, right? And so because so once you say, look, I'm gonna be a third party candidate, you're basically just saying you're irrelevant. And so, I think basically Elon Musk saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do a third party," yeah, that's basically him saying, "Okay, now I'm irrelevant." Right?
Let's do it. Let's run Pete Buttigieg, Booty Cheeks. Let's run Pete
Booty cheeks.
Buttigieg, and Elon will be like, you know, like how in the Clinton elections, Ross Perot acted as like, okay, fine, dude, I just a spoiler. Yeah, that's why Bill Clinton won. That's why Bill Clinton won Louisiana because there was like, whatever. Point is, if Elon does accumulate votes, I think he could take away votes from Trump, and maybe we'll get like blue Kansas, blue Kentucky, blue Missouri. We could have probably not. I don't know. That'd be funny though, because it'll be. I think isn't it? It's P, right? That's who they're trying to like whisk.
Pete Buttigieg. I mean, I
Well, let me put it this way. Pete Buttigieg is trying to manifest Pete Buttigieg as the clear nominee for 2028.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some like whispers about it being Pete Buttigieg. There's a bunch of centrist Democrats also that got overlooked for Kamala's vice president pick that they could
Whispers of
do.
a dark future.
Yeah, there's Kamala herself if they want to try that again. But yeah, I mean, that the thing I think is really amazing about this whole thing is the Republicans who have been haggling over the debt, like basically every 5 years, they haggle over the debt ceiling. When Trump basically violates that sacred principle, right? Like all he needs to do is to like put in some irrelevant concessions and then they go, okay, fine. Like all the Republicans are just complete spineless, Trump servants at this point. Like the
Wow.
Republican Party just exists to serve Trump at this point.
Look. There's a silent rebellion of liberal conservatives who, in their private text messages, are like, "Oh, I can't believe he's making me vote on this," and then that's about it. That's the extent of the resistance. I think it's
Yeah.
funny that the Lincoln Project, Mitt Romney, and Liz Cheney were like, we're gonna restore the Republican Party. And it's like, the Republicans are clearly the most like, agents of the state, right? The most like butter and toast, the daughter of Dick Cheney, and then Mitt Romney, whose only
Yeah.
interesting thing is that he's Mormon. That's it.
You know?
So and they were like, oh, we're gonna go back to conservative values. And for like a day of January 6th, everyone, all the other Republicans are like, yeah, he's right. We're in Trump. And then like once Trump starts like officially running again, they're like, oh, we were always supportive of
Dude,
Trump.
even Mike Pence, who like was making like on the campaign trail, was making all this noise about like Donald Trump January 6th because he almost died during January 6th. Even he at this like completely useless Republican debates that Trump snubbed, right? Even he, when they were asked, okay, put your hand up if you think January 6th is disqualifying of Trump for president of the United States. Something in that ballpark. He didn't put his hand up. He was even asked about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, January 6th was bad, but meh." Like,
Well, he recently was in the news condemning the big beautiful bill. He's like, when I was vice president, everything was great. I don't know what's going on now. It's like, yeah, okay, uh huh.
I
And
mean,
so I think
that is an interesting point though, because people talk about how Trump has less guardrails this time because he's basically carried out um the 2025 instruction the project 2025 playbook. And so I think that is one example where it's like, okay, at the very least, like his vice president last time was this sort of establishment Republican. His vice president this time is this doting right-wing populist that like basically does whatever he says and is his little yapping dog. If people remember when Trump got into a verbal confrontation with Zelensky at the White House. It was at the White House, right?
why aren't you wearing a suit?
Yeah, he was at the White House, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
You weren't at a Chick-fil-A.
Vance's only contribution to the conversation was being like a little yapping dog in Trump's favor. Like, yeah, you tell him, boss. You tell him. Yeah, my boss is really putting you for the ringer, pal. Like, like he's just a yapping little dog. He doesn't even have enough charisma to replace Trump, right? As the hair Tamaga, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's like so point being, that's sort of one way in which there's no guardrail, or there's far less guardrails. Is before he had to have an establishment Republican president, now he just has a populist lapdog. So
I do like that, like Joe Rogan. I think Theo Vaughn too has like all these podcast people. I think even I was gonna say the worst ones. Rogan's bad, but like in a weird Rogan way. There's I think Sneeko, the really obnoxious one that I avoid with like I like I'll read. Look, I have watched and read some truly obnoxious people. Sneeko, for whatever reason, just like I cannot.
is Sneeko?
Don't worry about it. The streamer who then there's Aiden Ross. I get him mixed up.
Okay, Sneeko. His name is Sneeko. Is a streamer already like just trash. Just belongs in the trash.
Anyways, point is all the podcast people Trump did because his son Barron told him to do it are like, what's going on? And some of them are like, well, you said you were going to get rid of the migrants. I didn't think you were going to get rid of the guy at Home Depot I like. Like there's all these stories of like people in small towns are like, oh, I thought when he said he was going to murder all of the people who were not white, he was going to spare all the people I liked. So yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah.
And he,
well, a lot of the like there's this like very common trumpeter line, which is like, okay, look, you can't accuse us of xenophobia. We're just saying that the people that are here illegally should be gotten rid of. Law-abiding citizens who are also happen to be immigrants, they're fine, but it didn't actually work out that way. But yeah, it's a common refrain. It's been a common refrain since he started with the anti-immigrant stuff during.
And it's important that we bring this up because the big beautiful bill gives ICE more funding. Woo!
Let's go.
So the bill keeps getting bigger and more beautiful, like a fissure, like an anal fissure. How else do we want to talk about the big beautiful bill? That's the law of the land that will increase the deficit by trillions over the next 10 years. Which I want to try to remember. I think the retirement, a lot of the programs expire in the 2030s, and they were like, oh, all these programs are going to retire in 2034, and then recently, like, actually, yeah, we made a mistake. It's actually a year sooner now, and so I'm guessing like, actually we made a mistake. It's closer, and so that's great.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, so if you look at the national debt as it is now, it's manageable. But like it's big, but it's manageable. And it's like, and also part of it is actually the US government owing one institution of the US government owing another institution of the US government.
Yeah.
So there's that. You have to account for that. I think that takes off like $1 trillion or something.
It's 7. I want to say 7 trillion.
Okay.
So it's what the debt is 36. So 29 trillion of that is not the government owing itself. So
yeah. So, but it's like manageable. So the thing that makes it start not to be manageable is when other governments and world institutions stop believing that the United States will actually pay back its debt. And one of the catalysts for the international community believing that a country can't pay back its debt is an unstable political leadership. Guess what we have now? So, he was possibly, as it turns out, one of the worst people that could have put in a past legislation that was going to increase the debt by trillions,
Well, it was, look, all these countries aren't going to come calling. They won't accuse us of not paying of the U.S. not paying its debts because they rely on the U.S., right? The U.S. has all these trade deals, is integrated with all these other countries. These other countries have, think the leadership is at least consistent, coherent. And then, of course, Trump came in and did all this, said, let's all be isolated and not consistent. And so, if there was ever a time for other countries to be like, oh, you can't pay your debts, it's probably be now. Will that happen? We don't know. Maybe not.
At the very least, some of the catalysts for countries starting to think that way are present.
You should bring up Wallerstein's state bubble, because that seems relevant to this.
Yeah, so if you look at like late 20th century financial crises, that was sort of like about bubbles in financial markets, right? If you look at the 2008 crash, that was about bubbles with housing, right? And the debt of individuals as opposed to financial institutions. If you look at what's happening now, because because states around the world are expanding their national debts to make up for the decline in real production that's been in place since the 70s, that means that, okay, now, national debts are ballooning. And when you have ballooning debts is when you get a bubble. And the bubble always eventually pops because you need to pay back the debt eventually. Right. So if you sort of follow the pattern, when it's the debt of financial institutions, there's a bubble and the financial institutions experience a crisis, the bubble pops. When it's, people's personal financial debts in the housing market, the housing bubble pops. So when it's a bubble that involves governments, okay, the government bubble is going to pop. The states are going to default on their debts. There's going to be a pop there's going to be a bubble created by state deficit, and that bubble is going to pop. And obviously, the big beautiful bill does basically as much as you could ever want to move us in that direction. So,
well, that's a great way to end the episode, I think. So let's anything else? Or
yeah, I mean, one thing I do want to say is it's very ironic that Make America Great Again has been possibly the worst thing for US global power. The tariffs basically severing US ties with other countries and thus increasing will ultimately have the long-term effect of making other countries independent economically of the United States and leading other countries to trust the United States less and want to do what the United States wants them to do less. The erratic sort of bluster about taking, whatever we want, taking Greenland, taking Canada, making us a global pariah, full-throated support of Israel, again, making us draw the ire of the international part of the international community that's still concerned with at least looking humanitarian, and at the same time stirring up conflict with China, accelerating that conflict, which is not going to be good for the United States over the long haul, because at the very least, China is, in a position to challenge the United States, even if it's not necessarily in a position to replace the United States. That's there's basically this acceleration of all the different processes of the decline of U.S. hegemony. U.S. hegemony really is over, but accelerating the further decline of U.S. power. And so it's ironic that it's like, okay, make America great again, make America powerful in the world again, make America, able to compete with and outcompete the other countries. And then the actual effect of it is accelerating the decline of U.S. power.
Well, is that it?
Yep.
All right. The Bohemian flag, Rango for the Wii, and Stephen being riding a frog. All right.
When you said Steve and being, it made it sound like you said Stephen being. Like there's a being named Stephen.
Well, that's a secret. Okay. We have
not all the beings' names were being.
Well, there's Stephen Being. Steven Universe,
okay.
Stephen Being. No relation.
Okay, yeah,
Being has patron post comprehension YouTube. Piper Tompkins is Piper Tompkins on YouTube. Patron. We don't have this podcast itself doesn't have a Patreon because Patreon wouldn't let us do it. But whatever, fine. We'll figure it out. Goodbye.